Those are President Obama's evolving words, telling the world over a period of days how he plans to deal with ISIS terrorists. It's been a tough go for the president, who received lots of pushback from critics when on Wednesday he called the terror group a manageable problem. By Friday, his words were much tougher now that he's put together a coalition to take on the Islamic State militant group. However, when he talks about the coalition, we still don't know what these countries will do and if it's going to be up to the U.S. to shoulder much of the responsibility. Joining us now with reaction, former CIA Director James Woolsey. Great to have you here, sir.
Good to be with you.
Let's talk for a moment about the evolving words this week. How frustrating was it for you to hear those words evolve over a period of days?
Well, shrinking ISIS until it's manageable is not exactly the battle cry of freedom. I mean, the president has a problem with language. When he first said a red line couldn't be crossed by Syria by using chemical weapons against its own people, or we would take very firm action, and then he stepped aside after Syria used chemical weapons and sort of shrugged, I guess, and said, well, didn't really mean it, turned things over to the Russians, essentially. His problem, Fuad Ajami stated it, the late Fuad Ajami, he's a constitutional scholar lost among the thugs. He doesn't really have a feel for how to deal with people like Putin and Assad and ISIS, I don't think.
You know, we are hearing now that a coalition is being put together, but I have to ask you, we are hearing reports from our own Catherine Herridge, who put together a really incredible report about the fact that the White House has known for a year now about the growing ISIS threat, and that intelligence officers have been monitoring, and military officers have been monitoring ISIS on the ground over a period of months. So why now this scramble to put together some kind of action? Why at this point do you suspect it's happening?
I think things got bad enough from the public relations point of view by the public reaction, particularly to the two beheadings, that they decided they needed to deal with it. But this is part of the problem with this administration. They focus on the message. And if the message, they think, or the narrative as they call it, is getting out of whack, then they take action. But and in order to try to bring reality to somewhere close to their narrative. But the narrative is what matters to them first and foremost. It's like trying to design your country's military capability to deal with public relations. It's just, I mean, I can't imagine Harry Truman, for example, acting like that.
The White House is saying we are not at war with ISIS, but you have gone on the record saying that we are indeed at war with this group.
Well, they're killing our people. We have retaliated against them in a limited way. Over Iraq, we're using air power to some extent, not over Syria yet. If someone says he wants to completely destroy you and starts using force against you, and they have a state now, the beginning state, about the size of Great Britain, the caliphate, they call it, what does it take to have us admit that they are at war with us, even though we're trying not to be at war with them by not reacting effectively?
I want to switch gears here for just a moment and talk about the information, the special that Fox News has put out about the people on the ground who are now coming forward from the attack in Benghazi, saying that they were given orders to stand down, that they were told not to immediately run in and take whatever measures were needed to help those in need. What's your reaction to these developments?
Well, I think I want to withhold judgment until we see what several people say. In an intense and confused situation like that, people can say one thing, and it's not exactly at the time they thought, or whatever. One needs to just get the details of this clear. But it looks as if, at this point, that they were not raising the issue of standing firm because they thought that the White House really didn't want them to. So this business of trying to read what's wanted by your boss and to say what the boss wants as distinct from what's accurate and clear is really dreadful. In those jobs, you've got to call it straight. And you can't sit there and say, well, I think what the White House staff told me I ought to say is such, and so I guess maybe I'd better just say that. No.
I want to let our audience hear what the State Department reaction was to the allegations that are being put out there at this point. Let's listen in.
There was no stand-down order given from anyone. There has been no evidence to support that claim throughout this entire process. It keeps coming up, and every time it does, we will keep saying there's no evidence.
I know you say it's a very difficult situation, but it looks like the State Department right there is saying that what those guys have told Fox News, that they aren't telling the truth.
Well, it kind of depends who was in what position, exactly what they say was said. This is something that one needs to be quite clear about before making a judgment. But I don't think what they are saying now looks very good for the administration.
James Woolsey, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us with your insights. Appreciate it.